theatre, film, TV and more. Suzy Wrong reviews it all on Joy Drive.
Good afternoon, Suzy Wrong. It's been a long time.
Oh my goodness, Warren, I haven't spoken to you in 3 weeks because you've been away on your adventures. So my question is, have you returned a changed man?
Do you know what? I feel like in some ways, yes, I have returned a changed man. I had some lovely experiences overseas, and not the kind you're thinking of, Suzy Wrong. I had very wholesome. Yeah, very wholesome experiences, and I loved it. I loved the food. I met a lot of lovely people while I was travelling. I always love travelling. I've spoken about last week briefly the moving moment I had in the War Remnants Museum in Saigon or Ho Chi Minh City with the impact of Agent Orange on the people of Vietnam. That was absolutely shocking, and you can't not see those photos and not be changed afterwards after you see the impact that has. So it was a really good trip, a really wholesome trip. I came back having ticked all the boxes that I wanted to tick, and that was to relax, to eat lots of food, and to grow in some way, to be curious about things. So it was great. But I'm also pleased to be back. I missed everyone. I missed Joy Drive, the Joy Drive family, and I'm so thrilled to be back, refreshed. But it's important to have a holiday, Suzy, isn't it?
I think so.
Oh, we forget.
And do you do this thing when you come back and in about 5 days' time you start planning your next trip? Have you started doing that?
No, I haven't, because I've got the puppy, and the puppy's taking all my planning time. So no, but I do have to plan another one, yes.
But it's good, I travel every year to Singapore because that's where my family and friends are. A lot of my friends are. So it kind of takes up all my holiday time and budget. So I do feel like I haven't seen the world very much.
Oh.
And I kind of do have to make the effort more. So from next year, I'm hoping that Singapore becomes like a stopover rather than a destination, so that I can, like you said, grow more and see more things.
Oh, it's so important. And the other thing is, Suzy, I went to Bangkok on this trip, and the only reason I went is because the airline that I flew, my aim was to go to Vietnam. That's all I wanted to do this trip, and I'm glad I did. But I had a stopover in Bangkok, and I met up with a friend of mine in Bangkok, and I love Bangkok. I love the food there as well, and the shopping. And the only reason I went there was because they had these good deals, and if you fly somewhere else to Asia, it was sort of included in the price. So you can do that, and Singapore could be the stopover.
Yeah, I think the distance from Singapore to Bangkok is, 2 hours or something like that?
It's not far at all. Oh, you go nuts.
Yeah.
That shopping season. Absolutely love it. Of course, when I got to the north of Vietnam, that nasty storm had just hit. It was only a few days after that. And it was really sad. See, I've never seen destruction like it, to be honest. It was really sad. But they were all very grateful to be supported by tourists coming in and helping the economy get back on track. So it was, I'm glad I went. I'm glad I'm back, and I'm glad I'm talking to you, and I'm also glad.
And we're talking about travelling.
We're talking about travelling, and we're also talking about a show called Will and Harper, which is streaming on Netflix. Did you watch it, Suzy?
Of course I watched it. I'm the best teacher there is. I said the homework and I watched it twice.
Oh, well, what was your review? Tell us about Will and Harper.
Harper came out as a trans woman late in life at around 60 years old. Her friend Will Ferrell was of course taken by surprise, having been close for almost 30 years and never suspecting a thing. The two have had long, illustrious careers in film, Harper being a writer and Will a performer and producer. The two decide to make a documentary about this new chapter in their friendship. Will and Harper is now on Netflix and follows the two as they embark on a road trip from New York to California, spending all their time together over 16 days visiting Harper's favorite haunts in Middle America, with the understanding that places that were once welcoming are probably not going to feel quite the same. This all takes place against the backdrop of unprecedented hostility in the US political sphere, with trans people routinely used as scapegoat in the eternal manufacturing of fear and disunity. Will and Harper is a rich documentary. It details the nature of friendship. It sets an example for acceptance acceptance of queer people. It captures the current temperature of attitudes towards transness, and it demonstrates the many challenges of someone transitioning, even when they are not short of access and money. Not only informative, Will and Harper is an entertaining watch, with both being witty characters savvy at this filmmaking business. Their conversations are as funny as they are enlightening, and it is clear that Will Ferrell's power as a Hollywood star will make the film an important advocate for trans people, especially in segments of society that remain ignorant to the plight of Harper and her community. Queer audiences will be drawn to its sincere tenderness, and Harper's honest revelations are likely to be illuminating even for those of us who have gone through that same journey. Warren, Will and Harper has got everything, doesn't it?
Oh, look, I really enjoyed it. And I mean, you would expect that, wouldn't you? A professionally produced documentary. It was comfortable to watch, that everything was shot well. From a technical perspective, I loved it from that perspective. I also enjoyed seeing two friends come together. You know, they were friends prior to transitioning, like best friends prior to transitioning, and then coming together during the process, and, you know, realising the person doesn't change. They're just being their real self. And you could see, I suppose, a sense of nervousness or apprehension on the part of Will Ferrell in terms of I've got all these questions I want to ask.
Yeah, one of the best things about this program is that it shows you that the person essentially is the same, but because of the transition, the coding of communications becomes a little bit different. Will feels like there's some things he has to be careful about, some things he should, talk to her differently, and that's captured really well in the film.
Definitely. Just on that, I mean, we've spoken about curiosity here before, Suzy, and we love it. We like to grow, as we spoke about with the holiday chat before. And I've got to admit, before I came to Joy, I was pretty ignorant about what trans people go through. I didn't know anything, and to be honest with you, I was a bit nervous to ask the questions. Like anyone, there's people who don't allow for, I suppose, mistakes, and it can be easy to fall into the trap and say, I'm not going there because it's too risky. I might get into trouble, or I might get told off. I might say the wrong thing. I might offend someone. Whereas I think, Suzy, to your credit, you've shared a lot of your story on this segment with us, and I feel like we need to be able to have these conversations, to be able to connect with people, show empathy, and then we grow and we understand each other better. And I feel like we need to, we need to make room for mistakes. We might say the wrong thing, but it's okay to say, well, actually, you know what, that's kind of offensive to say that, or this is the reason why. So we know, rather than just, don't say that, blah, blah, blah. That's what that came across in this documentary, but everyone's got questions, and it's okay to ask questions. It's
really interesting in Will and Harper that the moments that they show kind of people being offensive and people being mean and, purposely unaccepting, they don't do it to her face. They kind of do it through Twitter or, some other way of communications. But all the people that she meets on this journey, people that she meets at pubs, at sporting events, if they do come up to her, usually because Will Ferrell is around her, they might not really understand, because they look like they've never seen a lot of trans people before, but they never intend to hurt her. They would often say the wrong thing. They would use wrong words and wrong pronouns and stuff. But you can see that it is not sort of intentionally hurtful. So it is a thing about where we are at the moment, like the social media thing, technology has allowed trans people to get more information, allowed trans people to find community and courage to come out. And then by the same token, it is social media and technology that allows for these attacks to happen. Because I'm reflecting on my own experiences whilst watching the show, and I feel like, I do feel like I have experienced transphobic moments, but they're extremely few and far between, and they're usually kind of just like, ignorant or drunk young men sort of thing that pass by and say something that they think is funny. But the serious things happens online. By and large, people in real life, they don't kind of communicate that way. And the times when people use the wrong pronouns with her and they correct them, it's not like an aggressive or hostile moment. You can see that it's truly, it's honestly a mistake. Like they didn't understand because they see someone that they are unable to identify conveniently. So they go with what they're familiar with, and then they get corrected, and they're okay with it. I thought those moments are good to see.
And you almost see a relief, like, oh, now I know. A relief. I finally asked that question. I know what questions I can ask and I can't, and how to behave. And there's a relief because they feel comfortable now and they've had that conversation. And that's why I feel like these conversations are really, really important. Suzy, something else that stood out is it's not just that one way of curiosity, is it? Because trans people, and I never thought of this, to be honest with you, but it's true. Trans people also curious about, I suppose, cisgendered people as well. Like, what's going through your head at the moment? I mean, how did you find that, Suzy?
Look, I always think this. I still believe this after so many years, that when you're alone at home or alone in your room, there is no gender, really. So I feel like it's mainly a sociological instrument or something, some people might say it's a sociological construct, this kind of gender thing where how you talk to each other, how you relate to each other. So as an instrument of communication, it involves a two-way understanding, and in this moment of change, there is a lot that needs to be figured out. Gender was so rigid for so long, and then with this rigidity, the rules were very, very simple and very clear cut, and everyone understood them. But in recent times, the last few years, we are reshaping this, and it is an experience that everyone's going through, not just cis people understanding trans people, but also trans people need to understand what is it that they need? What is it that cis people need to understand where we are coming from? And there is some moments in the film where they discuss very beautifully and very frankly, like, am I doing these modifications to my body, modifications to my voice for myself, or is it for other people? And that is the most fundamental question for trans people, and that's a very sensitive thing that, each of us deals with differently. I don't think it's right for me to kind of impose my beliefs on other trans people to say that, I don't think you're doing that for yourself. You're doing that for the convenience of other people. It is very tricky it's not a one-size-fits-all.
Suzy, I've got a good story, and I'm not going to identify who this person is, but, someone that I come across in my life, a very, very masculine, heterosexual man, and he went on holidays recently and met up with someone, a very beautiful girl, and overseas, and of course then they get intimate with each other and find out that she's trans, and I think this is a really positive story. He wasn't fazed at all, and he's really excited, and she's coming over to meet them, and they're about to start dating, and his friends were sort of, hang on, I'm a bit confused. What does it mean? Does it mean you're gay? And I said to him, forget the labels. You're just met up with a lovely human being. That's it. Don't attach all these silly labels. That's when you get all confused. And he's really excited, and it's going very, very well. And I had no idea, and he's loving it. And I thought that was a really positive story. It just shows, don't attach these labels. Don't put ourselves into these boxes and these binary positions, and it's okay.
That's a really interesting story in terms of, like we have been part of the queer community for a long time, decades, right? So with in relation to these subject matters, our minds are very broad. Like we understand that, if a surprise like this happens, you kind of have to ride with it. Like if I were to say that one day, if it happens to you, if for some strange reason you have a special connection with a woman and you never identified as a straight person or maybe not even a bi person, I think it's easier for us as queer people to kind of come around to an acceptance of that. But I feel like straight people just kind of, most of them live in quite a rigid paradigm. And then when surprises or unexpected things like that happen to them, it's harder for them to move their heads around. So it's, full credit to your friend who's been able to well, at least be on the way to coming to terms with it. That's great.
Well, she's come over, and all his friends, like these blokey guys, they're taking her around and having a ball of a time, playing tourist guide. It's really good to see. It certainly, I brought a tear to my eye because I thought, wow, this girl's had such a hard life in her country, and I'm not going to identify where that is, and she's just being embraced by all these people in Australia. It's really great, and she's having such a wonderful time, and it's such a contrast. And it's just really good to see, and credit to my friends who also, they didn't give a hoot. It's like, great, a human being. We like this human being for being a human being. A couple of messages came in, Suzy. The entire program, all I could think of was how different it would have played out without Will and the camera there. I agree.
Oh yeah, they made the complete difference. Like, they were protecting her. There was a moment where she tried to go into the bar alone, but clearly the cameras were there with her, and people around knew that they were being watched a little bit. And one other thing about this film, one thing that the film did not address was the piece about privilege, the piece about her being a white person and how she used to be a white man, and she was able to do things that now, as a woman, even a white woman, granted a trans woman, she's not able to do. And I think that's those are the little nuances that I think newer trans people take time to understand, because they're so wrapped up in their kind of transition, their personal experience, that it takes a while before they see the bigger picture about how these systems of this inequality, is part of why it's hard. Why it's been hard for her.
Another message, I wish Will made the date night less about him and showboating. And I tend to agree. Highlights for me as a cis queer woman, awareness raising through Will, using his platform, them goofing around, example in the hotel pool, yes, true, and the fun song at the end in the credits. Great to have you both back. Thank you so much for that message.
Thank you.
Suzy, something else that stood out for me is, I hadn't thought about this, and I suppose it's quite risky, is we all need to belong, don't we, as humans? And it's just part of our nature. And I felt like I got the sense that, and you'll be able to comment on this, Suzy, is when you transition, you put that at risk to some extent, don't you? Because you don't know whether you'll be rejected, or the people that you do belong to, how necessarily they will react. And for a period of time, you may not feel like you belong. I don't know, Suzy. I got that sense from the documentary. Do you reckon there's any truth in that?
Yeah, she said, she didn't say that it happened to her, but she said that it happens to a lot of people in the documentary, that a lot of trans people lose friends when they come out. And, that's understandable. That's, that's the entire reason why coming out is hard, because we know that when this happens, when you do make this declaration, that you are going to kind of destabilize relationships. And then you have seen how your friends react to other trans people. You have seen how your friends react to other queer people when they don't know that you're queer. So you already know what they're going to be like. So that's what makes it so hard. That's why it stops so many people from being able to come out, and which is why people like HARPER has had to wait until she was almost 60, and it's not just an age thing as well. It is also, like, I wish they would have addressed that. It is because she has so much security around her, that she has property, that she has money, that she has established herself as a really famous, important, good writer, that she's able to come out. And even then, she does it with so much trepidation, thinking that she's going to lose everything. But if you think about people who don't have any of that,
yeah, true.
How do you do that? How do you do that? You already know that your family's going to kind of be really unhappy and might kick you out. And then you haven't got the money, you haven't got a home, you haven't got a job that you feel really secure with. How do you even start to do that? So for many generations, trans people never came out. People took it to their graves with them. But things are changing. I see around me, especially in the circles in which I live, especially in sort of the artistic theatre circles. You see young people coming out, and that's a new thing, and that's great.
Which is good to see, and some positive stories in there. And if any of this conversation has raised any issues, don't forget to head to joy.org.au/support. There's a great list of support services there for you to access. Suzy, it's great to chat with you. We are talking about Will and Harper, which you can stream on Netflix. What are we watching for next week?
Boyscation 2 commenced today with its first episode premiering on YouTube internationally. Let me say the title again. Boyscation 2. It is a dating show with 11 gay men from Hong Kong. As though it's not hard enough trying to find love in real life, they're choosing to do it under the scrutiny of cameras. Look forward to talking about this when I see you next Tuesday. Bye-bye.
Joy Drive.